Baron, here we are.
Hey Doc, how are you?
I'm pretty good.
I'm glad to hear it. We are here to talk about another film, one that we went and saw 2 weeks ago, gave a little reaction video to, Heretic.
Hi, welcome to That Reminds Me Of, a podcast about film and the films that remind us of that film. You're here with Baron and the Doc. Do we need another drink?
Yes, we do.
Yeah. Heretic. Straight off the bat, I love this one.
Yeah, I loved it too, man. I was surprised by how great it was. I wasn't expecting to really like this.
I probably was. When you get someone like Hugh Grant, you don't expect him in this sort of film, and you just see his face in the promos, all sort of crackly and old.
Yeah.
This is not Love Actually Hugh Grant.
You know what I think is we came off the back of something like Longlegs, right? Where you might love it or hate it. We were sort of lukewarm to it, and I think maybe I was thinking, maybe we're in a little trend of horror films here where they're going to get a big name in there and they're going to try and use them in an unexpected way, and I'm just a bit over it already. But actually, no, this was good.
Using someone in an unexpected way is generally a recipe for success.
Yeah, it's true.
And the recipe worked. The cake was good.
The cake was good. Okay, so shall we do a little synopsis? Even?
I reckon
Just one?
I reckon you do one. You seem like you've prepared for this.
I have. Heretic is a surprisingly tense psychological thriller that then dives into survival horror. It pits two young Mormons, eager, door-knocking sister missionaries, Sister Barnes, played by Sophie Thatcher, and Sister Paxton, played by Chloe East, against, you might have forgotten where this sentence started, but it's pitting them against the schemes of the disarmingly charismatic, charming, you might even say roguish or downright unsettling Mr. Reed, played brilliantly by Hugh Grant. On what begins as a mission of faith, the sisters are then lured into an isolated house where Reed subjects them to a harrowing series of tests designed to challenge the foundations of their beliefs. As fear mounts and Reed's manipulations grow more brutal, the sisters must confront not only the terror of their captor, but also the core of their convictions. How's that?
I think that's a damn fine synopsis, even if I say so myself.
There's, of course, much more to say about this film. What do you think, Doc?
Well, why don't we start with the start?
Yep.
Now, in our initial reaction, we alluded to the fact that I think neither of us were all that keen on the first 5 minutes. So talk to me. What did you like or dislike about the start of this film?
So the film kind of just meanders for the first 5 or 10 minutes. You're not really sure what is happening, honestly. And it's kind of, I think the intention is to make you like these two people, the two sisters, as just humans who are uncertain, trying to navigate how hard it is to be a door-knocking sister Mormon in today's age. And it just feels very off to me. The whole thing just felt a bit sort of like it was underwritten or, needed to be fleshed out a bit more, or workshopped or something.
Or overwritten.
Like
it all seemed a little on the nose, and at the time I was kind of squirming a bit. The conversation was about condoms, and then there was a big sign, and it just, I don't know, made me uneasy in the wrong sort of way. But I listened to an interview with the directors, and they touched on this exact point. And they started with a longer version, then they cut it down to what it was, and then they even felt a bit uncomfortable about it themselves. That they thought it was a bit saccharine.
Right.
So they tested it without the start.
Oh, just
without that sequence,
straight knocking on the door.
A little montage and getting straight to knocking on the door. Mm-hmm. And they reckon it with audiences and with themselves, it didn't work.
Wow.
Because people didn't relate to the character, characters hadn't seen them.
Sure.
How naive they were, how they were bullied, and therefore don't engage.
Okay, so I will go with that partway.
Okay. Oh, it had me.
Okay.
So you're a tough one.
So I'm gonna say this, that if you just take the beginning off the film and have them knock on the door, then yes, you don't know who these people are. So I don't think the answer is to not have a little
It's just
prologue,
to do it better.
but to do it way better than they did it. So it's like, yes, it tested better, but that doesn't mean it's the best version that it could be.
Yeah, okay.
That's my take on it.
Look,
hot take.
Okay, fair call. I'm not sure what my end thoughts are.
Yeah.
But what I do know is it doesn't matter, because as soon as Hugh Grant opens the door,
agreed,
and especially when they get into the house, and especially when Hugh Grant says, or Mr. Reed, I should say, says something like, "You're okay with the what was it, with the metal in the walls?"
That's so good. And they're like, yeah.
Oh.
Oh yeah, why wouldn't I be okay with the metal in the walls?
Yeah.
Weirdo.
That's when it started.
It's great. It's great. So I will say Hugh Grant's performance on this note is so unsettling in the way that he's just so damn charming and likable. And just, you want to talk to this guy. He's got great eyes. He's got a great smile. He pulls you in. He's interesting. He's engaged right from the outset. And it just makes him all the more creepy. Don't you reckon? Like the fact that he's this guy who really just seems like quite a nice dude. Very, straightforward. The points that he makes are all pretty sound from the get-go. Like it all seems pretty cool. Except that that he's a psycho.
Well, he's enchanting, isn't he?
Yeah.
Like he reels you in, and you like him. Although you do know that something's a bit screwy in there.
That's the power of it, isn't it? Is that from the get-go that there's something wrong with him. Like, what else is the story if there's not something wrong with this guy, and yet you like him?
Yeah.
Yeah. Love it.
And well, speaking of liking, the two girls, Chloe East and Sophie Thatcher.
Yep.
Amazingly good as well. And I think this is what I like. You're with them, you're feeling for them, but you're at the same time with him.
Yeah.
I know that sounds creepy, but
no, I was totally with him a lot of the way until about the last act.
Yeah.
And then I started to go, okay, man, I'm not with you anymore.
Well, and that goes to the philosophical level that it's working at, and the fact that it is dealing with themes that are going through society and the potosphere, just about religion and thinking and what life means.
I should clarify. I said I was totally with him. I wasn't with the trapping sisters in your house part of it, but I was with a lot of his arguments up until the last act. How's that? Yeah.
So how do you think a lot of this was very cerebral?
Yeah.
So how does that gel with being, a horror film with body horror and all these other genres sort of mixed into the one thing?
It's great.
It is great, isn't it?
Don't you wish more horror films were this smart?
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's the smartest horror film I've ever seen, but it just had a good level of intelligent dialogue and thought-provoking stuff in it, and just enough for you to go, okay, this is more than just a cat and mouse film that's going to get gory. It had another layer to it, which I really enjoyed.
Yeah, completely agree.
Yeah.
And I was reflecting on the film, as you do prior to doing a podcast on it.
Yeah.
And what I loved is the theme that runs through it about the different versions, like a vision and a revision of things, like the Monopoly story and how religion just evolves from one to another. It's exactly like this show. That's exactly what we talk about.
Wild. You're right. Why did that not occur to me? That's great. You're right. That's what it is. It's the echoes. It's the repetitions, the iterations. I think he talks about iterations a lot, doesn't he?
Yeah. I like echoes better. I think echoes, more poetic.
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds a bit sexier. I agree. I think that's a great point. That's exactly what we get off on this show.
I know. And I think this film wears its echoes on its sleeve.
Mm-hmm.
Like I had no problem thinking of what it reminded me of. Like there was a list as long as my arm.
Yeah, the trouble was to choose the one that you would talk about. That's a good problem. I like that problem.
For this show, that's a good problem.
Yes.
Well, do you have more to say about Heretic before we move into what it did remind us of?
I think there's a lot to say, but I think we should do it through the films that we're going to talk about that we were reminded of.
Excellent. Well, let's not dilly-dally.
No.
You go first.
Okay. So I know the film you're going to talk about. And so I will just say as a preface for this that there's a very, very intelligent film that reminds us that we were reminded of when we saw this film.
Yeah.
And of course, that's your pick. And then there's one that's, I wouldn't say it's not intelligent, but it's sort of just the other end of the spectrum. It's sort of the brasher, cousin to this, in this subgenre that we're talking about. So I'm going to talk about the brash film, but that is quite influential as a horror film in this sort of, I don't know, tropey subgenre that we're dealing with Heretic.
Okay, let's get into this tropey subgenre.
Great. Saw. 2004 Saw, 20 years ago. 20 years today.
Wow.
Not 20 years today, but 20 years ago. So Saw is a groundbreaking psychological horror crafted by Australia's very own James Wan and Leigh Whannell. Viewers are dropped abruptly and unflinchingly into a game of survival and morality. Two strangers, Dr. Lawrence Gordon, played by Kerry Yules, and Adam, played by the writer Leigh Whannell, wake up shackled in a grimy, abandoned bathroom. Between them lies a corpse, clutching a revolver and a tape recorder. That's where it all starts off. With time running out, the men must unravel a series of cryptic clues and terrifying choices orchestrated by their elusive tormentor, Jigsaw. We discover in Saw 1 to about a million that he is the twisted mastermind who tests his victim's will to live through horrifying challenges that often involve a terrible choice and a nasty consequence. In many ways, Saw defined a brand of horror films to follow with its inventive traps, shocking twists, and relentless atmosphere of dread, establishing Jigsaw, the mastermind, as one of the most iconic figures in modern history. Horror history, rather.
Modern horror history.
Yes. I would say if you've got your Freddys and Jasons and so forth and so on, Jigsaw is one of the guys from the last 20 years that you would go, that's a horror villain that we all recognize.
Well, yeah, I don't, because, I've seen Saw and I'm quite proud of it because of the Aussie connection. Anya, James and Leigh. But I haven't seen all the sequels. I haven't seen any of them. You said there's been a million.
I don't know how many we're up to now. It's at least 10.
Yeah, no.
Because I remember Saw X coming out at some point.
Yeah. But I'd only seen the first one and not for years, not since the time. So when I rewatched this, it was really as if I'm watching a new film.
Yeah.
So it was fun. It's your pick. What were your thoughts about Saw?
So Saw is not slick. It's not. It's very raw.
Yeah.
It's quite edgy. It's sort of just not perfect in a whole bunch of ways, but that's also its charm.
Yeah.
But a lot of it's to do with the choices that have to be made by the people who are in the situation. So while in Heretic you've got your villain in the room, actually, spoiler alert, in Saw it's the same thing, but he's not speaking to them the whole way through.
Yeah.
But you've got your villain in the room pushing them and nudging them. Jigsaw does that through recordings and like a staged set of events that they will unravel as they make their way through all the little twists and turns of the stories. And each one of them has choices. A lot of them are sort of an A and B choice, like, either you're just going to die because you're not moving or you're going to saw your leg off in order to get to the next stage. And as the Saw films go on, they get more and more ridiculous and extravagant. But I think that's really the core of it. It's not as smart a film. It doesn't present us with probably as deep thinking that we get in Heretic, but it does still have some like underlying moral decisions that need to be made at the heart of it. Some pretty profound ones, like what are you willing to sacrifice to save your life, and how far are you willing to go to prevent yourself from having something awful happen to yourself or to someone else.
I think that's the key similarity between them, and it's a really strong one,
Yeah.
is that, Mr. Reed and Jigsaw both are trying to teach their victims something. Like they've got a point of view, they've got something to say. These are not quite monsters they are monsters, but they're not it's not violence for violence sake.
No.
They think that they're making the world a better place.
And they're somewhat hands-off monsters as well. It's like, in a way, like they've put them in the situation. There's no way of getting out of it. But they're a little bit like, okay, now let's just see what you do with this,
Yeah. I love what you said when you said it's not slick. It felt to me like just the best sort of student film.
Yes.
So it felt like a student film, but had this just cracking idea and cracking script, and the twist at the end just gets you to your core. It's really fine film. Even though watching it through, I wasn't thinking it was great all the way through, but it as the layers pile up, it becomes great.
Yeah, I totally agree. It is one of those, and it sort of hints at the filmmakers that they will become. They both become very slick filmmakers. I don't think all of their films are necessarily fantastic, but it shows that, there's a great concept at the heart of what they're doing, and that the Hollywood slick kind of thing is going to come later. And once you combine those two things, there's a huge career there for both these filmmakers.
My only reservation about it, not reservation, it frustrated me a little, was the introduction of the red herring villain, the guy that's, and this is a spoiler alert, sorry, folks, again, the guy that's seemingly doing all the killing. It just seems so obvious that they're trying to plant him as the villain, and I was getting frustrated thinking, it couldn't be this simple. Like, why are they giving me all this information? And then when it pays off at the end, and it really does pay off, I kind of wish they'd hidden that a little and just made me work, because I was feeling like I knew everything. But it would have been nice to have to work for it and then have the rug taken out from under you.
Love it. Yeah, great point.
Yeah.
Great point. Okay, Doc, let's talk about your reminds me of.
My reminds me of, and I'm just going to have to open my iPad to get my synopsis.
Boot up the old iPad.
Yep, this is about a 93 iPad, I reckon, if they existed. Here we go. Well, while I'm doing this, I'll reveal that my pick is the absolutely immaculate film Funny Games by Micheal Haneke.
My God.
Michelle? I think you say Michelle.
Do you? I've always said Michael because I'm a...
Oh, it's probably Michael. Well, there I go. Trying to be all
I'm
posh.
going with Michelle. I like it. Okay. I've always said Michael Haneke. No,
wow.
No, I don't say that.
Okay. Well, it is Michael. So what am I talking about, Michelle? Well, it's Haneke.
Yeah.
Or Haneke.
We just say Haneke. Those of us in the know.
Do you want a synopsis?
Yes, please.
Funny Games, directed by Haneke, is the harrowing psychological thriller that explores violence, media, and audience complicity. The film follows a family, Anne, George, and their young son, Georgie, whose idyllic vacation turns into a nightmare when two polite but sinister young men, Paul and Peter, arrive at their lakeside home. Subjected to a series of sadistic games, the family is forced to endure physical and psychological torment while the perpetrators break the fourth wall. Love a bit of that.
Yes, you do.
Yeah, implicating the audience in their voyeurism. Nearly a shot-for-shot remake of Haneke's 1997 original, this minimalist and unsettling film confronts viewers with questions about the representation of violence, the illusion of control, and the moral ambiguity of entertainment.
Amazing. Now, it is quite interesting that you've chosen, and I hope we haven't lost like some viewers, some respect from viewers. You've chosen the remake to do the synopsis on. And was there a good reason for that, or did you have a...
Well, I'm upset about it because you said you were going to watch the remake.
Yeah, because I'd never seen the remake.
Yeah, so that had some sense to it.
Yeah.
I went on to Amazon Prime and saw the thumbnail of the original, clicked on it, bought it.
Yeah.
and then started watching and realised it's the bloody remake.
Bastards. So I think at the moment on streaming services, it's quite hard to find the original.
Yeah, well, I couldn't find it.
I don't know why. Why do they do that to us? Is it just in Australia? It could be.
Yeah.
But I went to see, because I saw the original years ago and just loved it, but haven't gone back to see it again. And so I thought, I keep hearing about this remake that's shot for shot. I need to see it and just, this is a good opportunity. So that's what I did. Can I say the first 5 minutes of the remake?
Yeah.
I found as unsettling as the first 5 minutes of Heretic.
What, in the car when they're going along the road, Shining style?
Almost everything up until the two villains arrive, I was like, what is happening? Why are they acting this way? They seem so strange. Like, they don't seem like real people. And I don't remember thinking that in the original.
No, because that's because the original's not in English, and
you wouldn't even know if they seem like real people or not. Is that why?
Well, European film always looks a little to us, like strange.
Yeah.
And that's why I love it. But you translate that into an American style Hollywood thing, and it jars.
It was a little bit like they were, AI versions of people. Like they were just a little off,
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. But then once the dilemma kicks in of the funny games, then it all started to make sense.
Yeah. Well, speaking of funny games, like funny games with lowercase f and g.
Yeah.
That's the main through line here, that the villains are putting their what do you call them? Victims. They're putting their victims through all this horror.
Yeah.
But kind of making a bloody monopoly of it, and
making a monopoly of it.
And just enjoying, teasing like a
God, they're bastards, aren't they?
Yeah.
They really are.
They really are.
They're just so diabolical.
And the difference is they don't, unlike Mr. Reed and Jigsaw, they don't seem to have a moral point that they're trying to make.
No, there seems to be no point to any of it.
No, they're just going Clockwork Orange on
They're on a rampage.
Yeah.
They're just on a complete amoral rampage. And the whole point of it is what? Just to see what they can get away with or something.
Well, I think the whole point is very meta because I think in the synopsis there was the word complicity. And I think that's the point of the film. Like, you're meant to watch this stuff, and that beautiful fourth wall first moment when they look you in the eye, and all of a sudden you're in there and you're with them.
Yeah.
Not really, but the fact that you're still watching, you're condoning what they're doing.
Yeah.
Which is a little bit Mr. Reedy as well.
I agree.
Because you're with him as well.
You are. Surprisingly with him for a lot of the film. The whole thing of how much can I get away with in funny games, like, the whole egg scenario, it's funny on one level, like, it's kind of a funny prank to play on someone, except for them in this situation, it's so dark. But like, to ask for 4 eggs when they've got a dozen, break them, ask for 4 more, break them, and then ask for the last 4 and see if you can get away with it is a really interesting experiment, I guess.
Well, you to find the commonalities between this and Heretic, you kind of got to flip it, and it's not so much how much you can get away with, but as the victim or potential victim, how long can courtesy and politeness outweigh your fear that something is not quite right?
Absolutely. He plays with that so much, like the whole story of a wife in the other room that's going to come at any minute, and how long he can delay that is quite genius. It's great.
And they know that something's not quite right from the moment of the metal in the walls.
Yeah.
In Heretic, they know something's not right, but they're, he's a courteous Englishman, and they just don't know when to stand up to him.
There's a similar moment in Funny Games where the husband, Tim Roth, comes back, or the husband character comes back, and the wife's already in the process of trying to push these 2 guys out of the house.
Yeah.
And he's like, wait, what's going on? And like when she goes to grab the kid's arm and take him out, he's like, whoa, easy. And he even makes an excuse for her when she leaves. He says, oh, my wife's not feeling very well.
Yeah.
And it's this thing of, and even then it takes him a little while. He has to get hit with a club before he figures out what's going on. But it sort of just takes them all a little while. They know something's wrong, but just courtesy stops you from kicking these people out of your house.
Yeah.
So it's like you say, it's the reverse, but it's really interesting. It's that idea of like how long you'll be polite when you know something's wrong.
Yeah.
And therefore get yourself in a serious situation, like bad trouble, because you've left it too late.
Yeah, it reminds me of Ruben Östlund's films too, when the characters don't know what to think.
Yeah.
You're confronted with some crazy situation and there's no guardrails on what your mind should be doing, or and in funny games in particular, they just present you with these situations. Even when the guys with the doing the beating up, they leave for a while, and there's this long, excruciating extended sequence in the middle when there's seemingly no threat.
Yeah.
And the characters are just banged up and they just can't, they don't know what foot to put in front of the other.
Yeah.
Well, one can't because his foot's stuffed, but it's really interesting, long drawn out, thoughtful cinema.
That's so Haneke, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's sort of a thing that he's become known for. That's interesting. Like, so if you are on the scale, you know, you've got funny games, Heretic somewhere here, Saw's somewhere over here. In terms of like in Saw, they're both just wake up in an awful situation. It's very heavy-fisted. Like there's no, there's no sort of nuance to it. This is the rules. This is what's going to happen. It's just like laid out in tape instructions, you know? And then all the way through to funny games where, you know, you're watching this little cat and mouse thing slowly unravel, and it could have gone so many ways. And their control is kind of tenuous. Like, you know, was there a moment where you were like, come on, Tim Roth, fucking just get in there. You know, why aren't you throwing punches at this moment? But like I don't know. It's an interesting spectrum, and there's so many different ways you can go about this kind of story.
Yeah, well, when they do throw a punch, when Naomi Watts throws a punch, in the form of shooting the guy in the belly, they rewind.
Right.
They rewind the tape. So that just shows that, you know, the point is that we are egging them on as, you know, lovers of this genre and of violence. We're egging them on to keep on going. So it doesn't fit our expectations if the heroes win. You know, we're telling the filmmakers to just kill them all and, you know, drop her in the ocean, which is pretty awful. Because I wouldn't have dropped Naomi Watts in the ocean personally. I would have saved her.
Yeah, she's pretty great. Yeah. Fascinating. I think this in particular is a perfect, reminds me of, like, it's just bang on. And I think Saw is pretty good. And I think the overall takeaway is that Heretic is a film worth going out to see, actually.
Heretic is an absolute ripper, and it stands in very comfortable proximity to Saw and Funny Games, both of which are rightly placed in the canon.
I would say too that if you are a fan of thrillers, then you will enjoy most of Heretic. And then at a certain point, you kind of need to be a little bit of a horror fan because it goes that way. But if you're willing to go for the ride, even if you're a bit squeamish, I think you will really enjoy this film.
Agree completely.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, should we go see our next film, Doc?
Oh, we're going straight to the cinema from here.
Are we running?
Late?
We're running to the cinema from here.
Okay, let's go. What are we seeing? Can we tell them?
We're seeing Gladiator 2.
Wow.
Which I'm already hearing such mixed reviews. I'm so curious.
I haven't rewatched the first one. I really wanted to watch the first one before this one, but anyway. Let's
Ridley Scott right now is saying, "Are you not entertained?"
Ridley, like and subscribe.
Catch ya, folks.
See ya.